But unfortunately, we start off the show on a very sad note from the world of the National Basketball Association, with training camps and media days opening around the league. It's going to be a very somber time for the Denver Nuggets, as great Dikembe Mutombo, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensive players in the history of the NBA, has passed away at the age of 58 years old. He was an 8-time NBA All-Star, 6-time defensive team, all-defensive team in the NBA, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, and his second all-time in blocks. But those are just stats. Dikembe, the person, beloved in the National Basketball Association, of course, even after his playing days were over, did a lot of different commercials as well. A very sad day for the world in the NBA, to say the very least. So condolences to the Mutombo family and the NBA family as well. All right, now over to the National Football League. Let's recap some of the things that happened. And as always, here on a Monday, you may have missed what happened on Sunday night, but you didn't miss much of a game. The buildup was big. The result was not. The Baltimore Ravens welcomed the Buffalo Bills into town and absolutely clobbered them pretty much from start to finish, as the Ravens seem to be getting now back on the right track. They improved to 2-2 after beating the Buffalo Bills 35-10. And by the way, it was not even that close. And the reason why was Derrick Henry just ran amok all day long on the Bills. 199 rushing yards in this game. Vintage Henry is now back to current Henry, it would appear, as the Ravens look to be one of the smartest teams in the NFL for signing him to that contract they did in the offseason. But needless to say, it was a scoring frenzy on the side of Baltimore, scoring on virtually every possession, and Lamar Jackson's certainly proud of how that worked out.
Yeah, I was, but I believe we scored every possession until I had fumbled, and that kind of stopped our momentum, and then they end up getting the ball and them scoring. I was ticked off about that because, like I said, in the NFL, a lot of games is a momentum type of game, and we go out there, we score 3 times, and then that fumble happened, it slows us down. But our defense was playing lights out. Offensive line played wonderful, and shout out to Justice Hill, because I believe when he on that third down, that goes unnoticed, but that was a spectacular third down for him to make a guy miss and get north up the field.
And losses are going to happen, of course, in the NFL, as they always do. But this was really lopsided, and very unhappy with Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Bills, after this one.
Baltimore Ravens came out and they beat us. They outplayed us. They outcoached us. And we've got to identify the problems and get them fixed. Winning the line of scrimmage was a challenge for us tonight, consistently. And if you don't win the line of scrimmage, and that's a whole team thing, not just the O-line, D-line, but overall, we've got to do a better job up front, O-line and D-line, and then collectively as a team winning the line of scrimmage. So I thought Josh was moving off the spot quite a bit tonight. Made some great plays doing that, but then it's just not the healthiest way to live back there. So, like I said, we'll make the adjustments we need to make. We got to make them quickly, and we move on from there.
Offensive line, one very big note for the Buffalo Bills. Big trouble last night for them in that game against Baltimore. All right, maybe the Chiefs are in bigger trouble than we thought. They do pick up this win against the Chargers, 17-10. It was a lackluster effort for both teams, I would say, on offense. Chargers were, by the way, 7.5-point underdogs, so in some spots you'll cash that. Mostly 7.5. So good news for Chargers backers. Bad news for the Chiefs. They win and also lose Rashee Rice. He suffered a torn ACL. So now without Pacheco and Rice for the distant future, no word on what the Chiefs may do to pick up the pieces here, but probably adding a wide receiver will be in the cards. Meanwhile, the biggest surprise in the NFL this season, without a doubt, has been the Washington Commanders. They look like one of the best teams in the NFL, dare I say. 42-14, they defeat the Arizona Cardinals and are surging right now behind Jaden Daniels, who is the overwhelming favorite to win the Rookie of the Year in the NFL. Kirk Cousins' last-minute game-winning drive against the Saints. Saints have now fallen back after looking so good the first couple of weeks, 26-24. And Minnesota held off Green Bay's comeback. Sam Darnold, 3 more touchdown passes. Packers were favored in this one. A lot of underdogs winning outright yesterday, again, in the National Football League. And perhaps the biggest surprise of all, because everyone used this team in the survivor pools this week, and the Circus Survivor, I'm sure, are the New York Jets. Is anybody left in the survivor pools at this point? The Jets were 7.5, 8-point favorites in most places throughout the week. I know it climbed a little bit at the end of the week, but it did not even matter. The Jets just couldn't get out of their own way. They lose the game outright to the Denver Broncos at home. To me, that was the stunner of the week. Caleb Williams and the Bears, they hold on to beat the Rams at home 24-18. Rams, of course, really banged up. Buccaneers destroy the Eagles, 458 total yards. Final score, 33-16. And also the Pittsburgh Steelers finally lose their first game of the season. Close game, by the way. Very exciting back and forth. 27-24. Joe Flacco won this game for the Indianapolis Colts as Anthony Richardson missed time. There's a report this morning saying it's just a hip pointer for Richardson, and he's expected to play next game the Colts play. All right, the new AP poll in college football is out. We got an instant classic on Saturday night between Alabama and Georgia. So naturally, you got to put Alabama number one after that win. And I think with the way that Georgia came back, they got it right. They only moved Georgia down to 5 after the loss there. So as you saw, it was Alabama 1, Texas 2, Ohio State 3, Tennessee 4, Georgia 5. And yes, 4 teams, as you see there in the Southeastern Conference, ranked in the top 5 in college football. 41-34, by the way, was the final in that game on Saturday night. In case you missed it, Alabama, they got off to this huge lead, and then Georgia came back late. Number 6, Ole Miss on Saturday. They fell to Kentucky 20-17. They missed a late field goal that could have tied the game. So Mississippi probably needs to win close to out to get back into the college football playoff scene. Arch Manning and Texas defeated Mississippi State 35-13. Texas was a huge favorite in this one. They did not cover. And also Arizona, by the way, had been a nice surprise in college football. They went on the road and beat number 10 Utah by a final of 23-10. All right, the Major League Baseball postseason, I mean, you could say it begins tomorrow, but it really begins today. The Mets and Braves are going to play a doubleheader. And I know this is going to be a little bit confusing for some, but the bottom line is this. If Atlanta wins one game in the doubleheader and the Mets win one game in the doubleheader, both teams are going to the playoffs. Whoever sweeps the doubleheader is in, and whoever, if they lose the doubleheader, they're out, and the Diamondbacks are in the playoffs. So this is going to be a wacky day of baseball, considering that the team that wins the first game doesn't need to even play anyone in the second game. I would assume that's what will happen, but we'll see. Diamondbacks are on pause, waiting to see what will happen. American League wildcard is set. Orioles and Royals, Astros and Tigers. Luis Arias, who went over to San Diego in May in the trade with the Marlins, wins the batting title yet again. 3 different batting titles, 3 different teams, 3 different years. And the Marlins and Skip Schumacher made an announcement last night that he will not return as manager, which we knew would happen for quite a period of time. All right, in the WNBA, let's get to this. The New York Liberty defeated the Las Vegas Aces. Final there, 87-77 in Game 1 of their semifinals. Also, Connecticut beat Minnesota 73-70 as they outscored the Lynx 16-8 in the fourth quarter. Xander ends up winning the President's Cup for the 10th consecutive time. He had 4 straight birdies on Sunday to get that win. And also, in case you missed it in the NBA on Saturday, a pretty mega trade right ahead of media days here as Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo were traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Karl Anthony Towns, a trade that seems to be debated on both sides back and forth. Who got the better of that deal? I guess we'll wait to see. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Are you streaming us in the state of Wyoming? I'm sorry we have not talked about you a ton here on Newswire, on SportsGrid. In fact, that may have been the first time that I've ever uttered sports betting and Wyoming and casino betting and Wyoming together in the same sentence since I started this show a couple of years ago. So the good news is Matthew Waters is here from Legal Sports Report. Tell us why we're going to be talking about that. But Matt, thanks again for coming on the show. Hope you had a good weekend. Before we get to Wyoming, let's dive into a very big day for Flutter, FanDuel, Investor Day. We get to learn a little bit more about their company. So once again, thanks for coming on. What have you learned?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Listen, Flutter had their Investor Day on Wednesday, and investors seemed to love what they heard. FanDuel came out swinging with what it expects for the U.S. It significantly increased what they think the total available market is going to be by 2030. Previously, they had said $23 billion for sports betting and $18 billion for iGaming. They bumped that up to almost $40 billion for sports betting and $24 billion for iGaming. So basically what FanDuel and what Flutter is telling us is that over the last 2 years, between when they made that last announcement and now, they just did not expect for the kind of growth that they're seeing right now. One of the things that they said is that they're trying to get to a 16% hold by 2030 as well. And it's easy to see how that's going to happen, right? We've already seen it bump up and bump up. They're at about a 12% gross margin right now compared to 7% back in 2020. The good part about that for bettors, though, obviously you don't want to hear that the hold is getting higher. That means you're getting less money. But they plan on using about 4% of that percentage points. So the net would be 12% hold, the money that they actually keep, but they're going to be giving back more to the customers as well, retaining customers and bringing in customers, because they've seen that not only are new customers doing better than expected, but the older customers are putting more money into the FanDuel system than expected as well. And we can see why in one area, Craig. We talk a lot about parlays whenever I come on. And when you look at the 23-24 NBA and NFL seasons, 70% of the action for FanDuel involved a parlay. That's just incredible to me. 25% of it was live, came from live action bets, and more than 50% now are based on player narratives, these prop bets that everybody is revamping their sportsbook for to get in a front and center place. So you can go and some of the sports books have it so you can search a name directly and just get all the available props for your players. So it's interesting to see that this is the way it's going. And the 70% in parlays, I never would have guessed that high, Craig. That is incredible to me. And they say that 88% of bettors believe that sports betting makes games more fun to watch. I'm surprised by 88% as well, because 88% aren't winning out there. Right. So that was surprising to me too. But look, I've seen industry pushback on some of these numbers too, that the market just may not get as big as they're saying, but that doesn't really matter to the everyday bettor, right, Craig? The point is that these sports books are seeing more business than they expected to. They, even with the states not expanding sports betting and iGaming like they thought it would, with it slowing down a little bit, they still expect more growth, even if it only comes from those existing players. So really impressive 150-page PowerPoint that FanDuel put together, that Flutter put together, their parent company. It's linked to on our website. I would encourage anybody to go ahead and read through that. But FanDuel they're a leader in sports betting. They're now a leader in iGaming, and they don't show any sign of slowing down.
No, and listen, I'm not surprised, by the way, that number is 70%. I guess what I'm most surprised by is nobody's making straight bets. It's either parlays, some teasers, or in-game lives and some futures, stuff like that. I mean, nobody wants to just bet on games anymore individually. But look, that's, options are new for a lot of people around the country. All right, well, here we go. All of our friends in Wyoming, Matt, who are watching this live are like, all right, give me the update on the online casino gaming there, because, again, not a state that we talk about a ton, but certainly there are a lot of, listeners and viewers here to SportsGrid in Wyoming. So tell us more.
Yeah, look, I know Wyoming is a bit of a small market, and at the beginning there, I even forgot that they had sports betting until you get the monthly reports coming in and you go, oh yeah, that's right. But it's interesting that such a small market like Wyoming is looking toward iGaming now, because again, when you hear Wyoming, even in the industry, you don't think, wow, that is a gambling market that I need to get into. But the fact that Wyoming is looking at this, and we know that other states are looking at it too, that is a positive right now. And honestly, the gaming industry will take any positives around online casino that it can get. It's a very well-known group that's doing the study. It's Spectrum Gaming Group. They do a fantastic job at laying out what an industry is going to look like for states depending on what they want to see. And so it'll be really interesting to see what a smaller sports betting state in Wyoming, what it's expected to do from an online gambling perspective. Obviously, you have two different kinds of bettors there, and then you have some crossover bettors as well that'll love it as well. But you think about all the female slot players that exist in the world. Online casino is exactly targeting them, and then trying to back them into some sports betting at the same time, get them to do a couple parlays too. But the fact that Wyoming is looking at this as a generator of revenue is is great for the industry. They need anything with online casino right now. So while Wyoming may not be the biggest win in the world from a revenue standpoint, if another state can get across the finish line on online gambling, maybe that would lead to New York taking it a little bit more seriously, or Ohio or Illinois. There are so many states out there that are kind of just mulling it and thinking about what could happen if they legalize online casino. There's still a concern out there about online casino and whether it cannibalizes the retail industry. And people will argue one way or another on that. But overall, we've seen that online casino is generally accretive to whichever gambling state they enter into.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's close it out with the story that we heard about back in August, which is the possibility of FanDuel and DraftKings adding a surcharge to some of their bets. Is there any update on that now?
Yeah, you know what, Craig? It was interesting because obviously DraftKings decided not to go forward with it. And so we didn't really hear too many regulators speaking on the record about this, but New York did last week. And it was interesting because the chairman of the regulator up there, Brian O'Dower, he basically said that, it's their job to protect the people that gamble in the state. And so he said, quote, "In that regard, I looked with great alarm about the recent proposal for a 20% surcharge." And basically what he said was, look, if any gambling company has any ideas about this again, we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at it really close. We'll be subject to, quote, "the strictest scrutiny, and if appropriate, be rejected." So it was interesting to me that we finally had a regulator come out and say something so firm about it, because we never had to actually get there in the step. But if New York and they're 51%, they're saying, look, you got to come here and pay it all if you want to be here. That's a powerful statement to the industry.
No, it definitely is. All right, Matt, have a great rest of your week. I don't know. Am I going to see you later in the week? I have a feeling I am.
Yeah, I think you are. Yes.
Okay, good. So I'll catch up with you later in the week. Have a good one.
Thanks, sir. You too.